So Matt, we've been talking about some aggressive positions we could be taking in crypto, and I'm wondering about a specific one, which is about wash sales. And I hear a lot of different opinions about wash sale rule being, I own some crypto. It's say down 25% or 90% as cryptos often tend to do. Why don't I just immediately sell it and then buy it back and then therefore take the loss, then net that loss off against any other gains I get, and I can just immediately rebuy that same crypto and generate basically a fake loss for tax purposes. So I hear a lot of people saying like, there's no rule that says I can't do that. Why not just do it? And I feel like you may have a caution sign for us.
So I will tell you that there is only really one context in the Internal Revenue Code where wash sales are specifically not allowed. It's in the context of securities, so stocks and bonds, basically. There's other things that fall
And
into
every
it.
crypto has,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
regulators say.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So basically what those are is you have to sell it and then not hold it for a period of time before you can rebuy it. Otherwise there's a wash sale. And what the wash sale is basically it pretends you never sold it. So the gain or the loss just gets, well, to be the loss, because if it's gain, it's irrelevant. You can actually have wash gain and you recognize the gain. But the wash sale loss doesn't work. And what happens is it just defers the loss again. It just kind of keeps it going. And what you want to, and people say, well, it doesn't say I can't, so therefore I can. And there's a very famous case, Gregory v. Helvering. Guy T. Helvering was what is now the Secretary of the Treasury. No, I got that wrong. He's Commissioner of Internal Revenue. So there's a lot of cases with Helvering. So Mrs. Gregory,
name sounds familiar. I was like, oh, the name sounds familiar. Why is that? Thank you.
You've heard a few. Yeah. If you have read any tax case for about a 15-year period, he was it. And he was also it in the 30s and the 40s when there was a lot of litigation when the tax rates were a lot higher. Mrs. Gregory did some structuring that just didn't work, right? And there's this wonderful phrase, and I'm going to misquote it because I never bothered to learn it, from Judge Learned Hand. His actual first name was Billings, I think. But what he said is, there's no constitutional duty to pay more taxes than you're obligated to pay, which is true. But that's dicta, because Mrs. Gregory lost and she paid penalties. And what the actual point of the case is, but this is not that. You can't structure a transaction to manufacturing that's false. So Moish, you said false loss, right? If you say this is a false loss, but I'm going to take it, well, no, then you need to be able to take it otherwise. The reason that you wouldn't be able to do it, and the counter argument, is what's called the economic substance doctrine, which is codified. It's actually law, 77010, I think, I'm 99% sure. And what it basically says in this context is, from an economic perspective, you didn't actually sell it. There is no real risk here. The economic is that you sold it and you bought it, right? And I've had people say, well, you just wait 5 minutes. And from a non-tax perspective, that's a heck of a position, which is if your asset in 5 minutes could drop enough that it's worth it, do you want to buy that asset? Which is sort of the point about, the many, I'll say, less successful tokens and coins that exist. But on the flip side, what if you're doing it, right? And so how, people are like, well, how long do I have to wait? I'm like, look, if you were to wait 30 days, right, which is roughly, the rule's a little different than that, but I'll just say it's 30 days, which is the rule for securities, I think you're fine, right? But 30 days is kind of a long time, especially in an asset as volatile as most of these are. So do you need to wait that long? No, but don't sell it, wait 5 minutes and buy it, right? That's bonkers. That's just way too fast in my view. So it doesn't say you can't, but the economic substance doctrine, which absolutely exists, doesn't do it. There's also, from another perspective, some people say, well, what about the step transaction doctrine? Step transaction doctrine, very similar concept, but it's basically if you wouldn't do every single step, right? You can't manufacture, and this is what Mrs. Gregory did wrong. She took all these steps to get to an endpoint, right? And by using all these technical steps, she got to an endpoint. And you can't do that. You can't use 17 steps to get to one where you can get there in one. And by doing these 17, you get a different result. It sort of collapses it, right? If you wouldn't do all of them at the start, then you wouldn't do any of it, and it should really just be ignored or recharacterized. And that's the issue, right? So people say, well, I do them and I take them and that's it. And I'm like, okay, yes, but you could get audited. And if you get audited, they're going to do it. Is the IRS watching trades that closely? Heavens, no. They don't have the resources to do it. And I don't think our AI is anywhere near good enough to do it. And frankly, I've dealt with some active trader clients, former clients. And man, there are people who are doing a lot of trades. So you have to be pretty high for them to really get up that number. If you're doing 2 trades a day, right? and you're doing a couple watch sales, they're not paying attention to you. I don't mean to sound rude. I would love to view as important, although maybe we want to be not important to the IRS. And I think that's what we're looking for. So people say, the question, right? Okay, but what about watch sales? It doesn't say I can't. And there's a rule for securities, so I can. And the answer is you can. It's the old trading adage, bulls and bears, make money, pigs get slaughtered. Don't be a pig.
Yeah.
Make a rule and do that. And I think that's what's important to me.
I mean, from where I sit, wash trading is a very common thing in the securities markets because people are doing it to, create the illusion of action, of price action, which drives the prices up. And that's when people want to capitalize on it. So it's kind of interesting to think of a scenario where someone is doing this in order to juice the price. And the IRS catches them and dings them on every trade that they made, and then the SEC catches them for wash trading. It's like one of those things. It's like counting cards in the casino. It's not technically illegal, but they don't let you do it, and they throw you out. It just reminds me of that.
Sir.
Right, I'm gonna ask you why am I doing anything illegal, even though I have this the thing on my leg, the buzzer. The happy bringing Mr. Happy, and he hits it with the cattle prod. But that's what I think about wash trading. It's just amusing to think that there is no hard and fast rule about these things, even though it's to me it's a smell test kind of thing, where there's smoke, there's fire. If you have to ask, then you shouldn't do it, and that's the kind of thing that it's like, hey, should I be doing this? I'm trying to juice the price. Probably not. It's like you don't need a law degree to know which way the wind blows.
I had to that point, I had a conversation with someone who was a trader at a bank. And what he sort of surmised was there were periods where they were probably selling the stock to themselves, right? Different traders taking different positions.
Oh, definitely.
And in crypto, my Lord, that can happen. That really can happen, right? And you can probably do it yourself. So you can goose it in ways because look, the SEC watches what's going on a little more than there, anyone, whomever the regulatory agency should be in any country on this stuff. I don't know. And I have no opinion on that. Believe me, I have none. But it's hard to figure out. And I always say well, then I just do a wash sale. And I'm just like,
yeah,
I don't think taxes are your real concern.
Right. Right. That's the least of your problems. Like getting the IRS audit would be welcome. Now you have somebody to talk to.
It's like, don't worry. I was only trying to pump up the value of this in order to sell it to some bunch of suckers. Ben Affleck's going to star as me in the movie, or Leonardo DiCaprio, whichever one you want it to be, right?